Amen. Amen. And then,
I do that in confession too. I'm like, how do you say the act of contrition?
that is so funny to hear because I get so nervous and I've gone to confession like all the time and I still will take the act of contrition with me. And if I forget it, then I'm like, I shouldn't go in and, just, and actually it's kind
Yeah,
of,
sometimes I'm just like, I lost it. You gotta help me.
it happens all the time. Sometimes I'll be saying the introductory prayers and I'm like, it just like slips my mind. I don't, but anyways, so thank you so much for joining us and
Of course.
for praying this rosary with us. My family, like we kind of are, we're huge fans, or we just love your books, and so we especially
Yeah,
carry this one around because of the prayers. So, but yeah.
your sister had told me that the last time I was on, so I'm glad that I got to meet you. Well, meet you.
Yes, yes, it's so
Yeah.
fantastic. So I was wondering, how are you doing in all of this? Like with the coronavirus, has a lot of things changed for you?
Yeah, just as it has for everyone. I'm in St. Louis, our convent in St. Louis, so I'm
Okay.
only with four sisters, whereas I just was transferred here and from Boston, where there's 70 sisters. So
Oh,
um, yeah, so for me, I was working in our bookstore and doing exhibits at parishes, but now, I'm also a writer and editor, so I can still do work. So I'm thankful for that because I think I would lose my mind if I didn't have anything to do.
right,
But
right.
yeah, but so yeah, life has changed. It's changed for everyone. I was looking at all the intentions of people.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just so all of our hearts are just filled with anxiety and troubles and worries, and there's so much going on. And I was praying the other day, and I was worrying about the future, like a lot of us probably are, and I felt Jesus just say, Jesus, you are my future. Jesus, you are my future. Jesus, you are my future. So I've been doing that. That's been my little prayer recently. So I wanted to share that with everyone because I'm sure everyone else, just like me, is feeling anxious. This is an anxious time.
Yes.
And it's easy to lose hope. But
Hmm.
I really believe that in times of storms like this, God has a lot of graces for us, an
Hmm.
abundance of graces. And graces for the world that come through the rosary. So it's so important what you all are doing. I really,
Oh,
I'm so happy to see so many people joining, and yeah.
yes, yes. And I've actually just in this storm, it's been so wonderful to see so many praying and and taking advantage of the technology and kind of that community, and it's been beautiful. So I'm just so grateful to see everybody praying the rosary.
Yeah.
That's what I keep
God
hearing.
is doing He is doing beautiful things in people's lives, and He's
Yes,
changing hearts. Yeah.
yes.
So it's important to keep that in mind, and to always just remember that Jesus is our future no matter what happens.
I will be praying that all day long. So beautiful. Can I ask you a quick question, if you don't
Sure.
mind?
Hmm.
So my son, my oldest son, he has somewhat of a similar story, and everyone on here probably is somewhat familiar with it. He's grew up Catholic, and then of course is kind of now, denied that and turned to other ways. And anyways, but I loved reading your story. It gives me hope, and just continued prayers for him. But I always want, and I know there is, like you said, there's no silver bullet. Everyone has their own journey.
Hmm.
Is there? And I thought your testimony or your statement of we need to be the evangelists just in our everyday activities. Hopefully speaking holiness, or but do you have any, like, you guys need to read her story. It's amazing. But do you have any recommendations, or I know you're asked that all the time, so I'm like, well, I just love to hear your thoughts, and I think sometimes it's great to hear from you. So
Yeah. Um, you know, I guess in these times, I think
hmm.
first of all, it's really important to pray for people who are away from the church right now, and for unbelievers in general, because this is a time where you can't be complacent about what you believe.
Right.
People are going to think about these things. They're going to think, you know, they're going to be challenged. They can't lose themselves in their job. They can't lose themselves. Well, we can lose ourselves in anxiety. But so it's one thing to pray for that people can really wrestle with the questions of life in this time
Mm-hmm.
because they have the time for it. And God has really, I just really believe that God has a lot of graces right now for people. So to like amp up your prayers for people who are away from the church, but also what I found, and I've talked to a few of my friends who are away from the church, and I feel like authenticity is really important to be like, because they expect me to be all zen and peaceful and doing great in this quarantine because I'm a nun and I'm like, no, actually I'm pretty anxious and
Right.
I'm really struggling. And actually that helps people who are away from the church to hear our real struggles, but how God helps us through them.
Yes.
Um, to be like, to kind of put on a front that's not helpful to people because then they just think, I just don't have a place in there. I just feel, you know, I'm never going to belong because I have so much interior struggle. But to share our own with them and to really walk alongside them and not act like our faith makes us superior, it does give us strength. It gives
Right.
us strength in the midst of the struggle, but it doesn't take away the struggle. So
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. Are you still are you still writing? Are you continuing to write future books or
yeah, I have one more Memento Mori book that's going to actually be a book,
oh,
whereas all the other things are more like resources and a devotional. So that's what I'm working on. So it's a pretty appropriate topic.
right.
Yeah, once I got over like walking around in a shock in fog, which took several weeks, but
Right, right, right. Because, well, and you wrote 500 days on Twitter. I mean, every day of your kind of meditation. It was just so beautiful. So, yeah. And
yeah.
so,
Yeah, so I'm just expanding on it because a lot of people have still asked me, a lot of people still have misunderstandings about death, about the Christian view of death and the Christian view of meditation on death.
hmm.
Um, and then I just want to share some of the great stories in the saints' lives. So I'll do that in the book too. So
Oh,
it's been fun to,
yes.
yeah.
That has to be amazing. Who are some of your favorites? Do you have, or I'm sure you have a plethora,
You
but
know, Saint Francis of Borgia, he was he lived around the time of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, and he was converted when he was asked to go alongside the Queen Isabella who had just died. She was beautiful. She was renowned for her beauty, and they traveled with her for like 3 days to Granada to bury her in her tomb and they had to before they buried her there was a tradition that they had to open the coffin and identify the person, and for some reason she had been just really she was really unrecognizable. They said it was so horrifying how she looked that all the other nobles next to him kind of backed away, and he stood there and just stared at her and thought, this was one of the most beautiful people, most powerful people, and now she's in the grave and not rotted and not recognizable.
right.
And he went to his room and he kneeled down and he prayed for the rest of the night, and it totally changed his life. He ended up joining the Jesuits, and so I think that's, and actually several saints have had that experience. Several saints were told by God what day they would die so that they could prepare. Um, there are just so
Mhm.
many stories. It's really amazing.
And
Yeah.
it was a good friend of yours, his death that kind of changed your trajectory as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. God uses tragedy to move people's heart to conversion. And so that's what it was one of my friends who passed away that made me start to really ask the question, does the soul exist? Is there
Hmm.
something beyond the material world? And so now when all these people are suffering, when we're all suffering, God is working. I really trust that God is working to convert our hearts. And death is not the worst thing that can happen to us. The worst thing is that our hearts cannot be converted. So
Right.
he will use this moment in time to convert hearts. I really believe that.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you
joining
so much
us.
for having me. Yeah.
Everyone was asking for your book name and your story, and her your story is just amazing, and it's just so graceful, and so we'll share those with
Okay,
everybody.
yeah.
Chris is good at that. I'm always like, I don't know how to do it. Well, I mean, I could, but she'll take care of that. So just, and do you care if we share this on YouTube? Is that okay?
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we will do that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you
Have a
all.
great day.
And I'm
Bye.
praying for everyone's intentions. All right.
Thank